In 40 years, there will be 4 times as many men and women over 60 in Africa than there are today. While this is good news, reflecting increased life expectancy, it also means that there will be more older people facing chronic poverty if no action is taken. Currently, 90% of older men and women in most African countries are living without income security, which denies their right to security in old age as defined by the UN Declaration of Human Rights. Older people's poverty affects not only older peoples themselves, but the entire household. This is particularly true in households made up of older people and children, where grandparents are performing the role of caring for children whose parents are sick or have died of HIV or other illnesses, or who have migrated to look for work. Addressing poverty in old age is key to preventing it from being transferred to younger generations. Several African countries have introduced universal or near-universal, non-contributory old age pensions. These countries have all done this in recognition of the central role of older people to their households, communities, and their nations. In these countries, non-contributory pension schemes have not only helped reduce older people's poverty, they have also been a central component of national strategies to promote economic and human development. This film concentrates on 3 key governmental concerns when considering a non-contributory pension scheme for their country. What are the impacts on local economic growth? How can it be afforded and sustained? And how is it possible to deliver cash to older people in marginalized and underdeveloped contexts? Namibia has implemented a universal non-contributory pension for almost 20 years. The scheme, known as the Old Age Pension, currently gives $450 Namibian, equivalent to 14% of average income, to everyone over 60 years old. The grant has undoubtedly reduced poverty in Namibia.
The contribution that social grants makes to the population that are considered poor is it reduces that population by about 10%, and if you look at those who are very poor, it's about 22%, which is actually very significant.
Beyond poverty reduction, a particularly interesting aspect of a pension is how it impacts local economies. In Namibia, the equivalent of $8 million is transferred to older people every month. The pension ensures that older people meet their basic needs, and their expenditure directly benefits local economies across the country.
It is a good thing, really. We are buying our food for a day. We are also buying our clothes, as you can see here.
The social grant does not only benefit the elderly themselves, but it also creates an opportunity for some of the small businesses to operate.
The old people buy a lot of things, and we are very happy. I can say it's very good. The payday of pension day is we make a lot of money, but we help and he help us also. 50-50 from us to him.
Small businesses, they bring their commodities to the pay point. It stimulates the economy because they depend on the income of these people.
Many older people have to continue working while they receive their pension. Because the income is regular and reliable, older people can begin to invest in their livelihoods.
They can save some money, or they can use that money to buy livestock.
Older people are also able to organize themselves to create income-generating activities.
I have seen some of the pensioners where they may come together as pensioners and say, what can we do to help our village? Like one of the villages in Gandufle village was remote, with no shop. So they come together, they talk, and then they contribute to make a small community shop.
Shops are more likely to lend to older people because they receive a regular income. Therefore, during hard times, older people can borrow to curb economic shocks on the household.
They have credits in the stores, especially in the middle of the month. Then they start asking for credit in the store. That's when, at the end, at the end of the month, when they receive the money, they also pay the credit at the same time after they bought all this, commodities.
The pension is also allocated to younger generations in the community and the household in exchange for casual labor or care work.
Some of the elders employ the people to work for them. This is a sort of a job creation for those who cannot receive this kind. For instance, if the pensioner needs firewood, pay those who can, and they bring for those pensioner, or clean or bring some building materials for that pensioner, and then they create job or give to the community.
The pension enhances the productive capacity of younger generations, since older people tend to spend on the well-being and education of children in their household.
By getting that social grant, people will be able to access education, for example, and the health services, thereby also increasing the human capacity in Namibia.
When the social grant was implemented, one major challenge was how to distribute these grants in rural areas, as Namibia is the least densely populated country in Africa. The government decided to partner with the Namibian private equity firm United Africa Group in order to help distribute the old age grants in rural areas.
In the rural areas, transport is generally a problem for them to get to us. And what we try and do is to get within 5 to 6 kilometers of every single recipient by utilizing a series of vehicles fitted out with ATMs, which traverse every single square meter of this country. We identify strategic pay points in conjunction with the various ministries which are close to the population and which would provide some level of comfort, i.e. a school hall, a church hall, somewhere where there's big shady trees, and those become our pay points.
For security reasons, the dates and locations of paydays change from month to month. Since older people rely on their pension income, it is crucial that they know where and when the next pay point location will be.
We make an announcement on the radio telling the people that on this day, come together, so the paymaster will meet you at your place. The person will have to come with that card and his own ID. And once I insert that card on the machine, then those cards, the information which we have in the card, we use a fingerprint, such you see on the machine how we used to pay the people.
Namibia's old age pension successfully enables older people to engage with economic growth within communities nationwide. Despite being the most sparsely populated country in Africa, 93% of people over 60 are receiving regular payments to supplement their livelihoods and to continue contributing to their households.
Here, everyone benefits, and we are happy with it.
It's a good model. Why? It's because of its impact on poverty and also its ability to offer access to social services. Simply because of those two, I think then it could be a good model that can be replicated in other African countries.
A key question for governments when considering a universal pension is affordability and how it can be sustained in the long term. The small island nation of Mauritius currently boasts the lowest poverty rate in Africa. Its long-standing pension scheme, which guarantees a basic minimum to people over 60, has contributed over the last 60 years to Mauritius's economic miracle, according to the IMF.
You don't have to be rich, you don't have to be poor, you don't have to be middle class, but each one will have a pension.
When the government decided to implement a pension in the 1950s, Mauritius was considered a low-income country.
Life was very hard at that time. In the beginning, it was very hard. There was no electricity, no water, and iron sheet houses.
Incomes were low and families were large.
In the 1950s, despite a poor economy, the Mauritian government decided it needed to reduce poverty by implementing a national non-contributory pension. The older men and women were identified as a group of the population who were particularly vulnerable at this time.
In those days, the family could barely eke out a living for themselves. So having to care for those who could not work was a burden on the family. This was a felt need at all levels, let's say at all political levels. And therefore, there was always this call to introduce for the elderly people a form of pension.
It was a recognition of the political system or the government of the day they acknowledge this need, and also somewhere acknowledge that this problem will escalate because it would impact upon the family.
Social assistance to older people was seen as a necessary step to reducing the widespread poverty felt in Mauritius at that time.
The government was committed at that time to reduce poverty. Even if it was negative growth rate there, people were basically very poor at that time, definitely. But the government was committed to give them a pension, even if it was like around 15 or 20 rupees per month, essentially to reduce the poverty level.
Getting 15 rupees in those days and on a regular basis meant a lot, given the meager income they were getting from working.
The pension implemented in the 50s initially involved a means test, which was abolished due to public resentment and recrimination. In 1958, the government made the pension universal. This universal non-contributory pension continues to play a critical role in poverty reduction today.
We need that money, we need it very badly for other things. Some of us after a certain age, you become ill, isn't it? And you need to buy your medicines. And if you are living alone, it's worse. You have to spend certain amount of money. Therefore, that pension is of immense importance to us, whether rich or poor. I mean, it means a lot for the elder, and they feel good. They feel good, they feel they are wanted. They feel that the country loves them, because they are, socially speaking, they feel very, very empowered.
अकेले रहिला अपन पकाइला अपन अकेले खाइला एगो बेटा बा तो अपन फरके रहेला
Being poor and unwanted, being considered a burden, doesn't enhance the self-esteem and dignity of anyone. And older persons need to have a quality of life. They need not only to be economically well off, but they also need to have a good self-esteem and feel the respect of others in society.
All people need to have social protection, social services, because they have to work hard. And when a government happens to put up these social services with different schemes to elderly people, it is a sort of guarantee that a government can give to its working class, and this makes a civilized society.
Mauritius's universal non-contributory pension scheme has been sustained for over 50 years due to a combination of economic and political factors.
The pension cost to the economy is expected to be around 2.3% of GDP. So it is a large share, but still manageable. Why it has been proved to be manageable for the government? Because the economy has been growing in terms of GDP growth and GDP per capita.
There was, so to say, a lot of stability in the income of the country, and therefore we were able to predict our income and our expenditure, and we were able therefore to earmark what amount was needed for old age pension. And there was also the political will. I must perhaps emphasize this. There was the political will across the political divide for the old age pension to continue.
In terms of the direct implication of the elderly having an income at the end of the month, it's in terms of consumption. It will help them to consume better, to have a better standard of living. It helps them in a sense, and consumption, higher consumption has an impact on the economy for a number of multiplier effects. In terms of tax revenue as well, taxing in terms of taxing consumption, taxing in terms of businesses as well. So this generates revenue which can ultimately finance the pension scheme.
Many modern economies today depend on consumption, and social protection system which help sustain consumption help sustain economy.
The universality of the scheme played a central role in sustaining political will. After the initial reform of the pension in 1958, there have been two other short periods when means testing was introduced and then converted back into a universal scheme, most recently in 2004.
When they implemented that approach, it caused a lot of trauma to our people, because suddenly they were given, big circulars and formalities where they had to state how much money they have, whether they have money in bank, whether they own property. Then government will decide, but that person is not qualified, this one will be qualified.
It was very difficult to distinguish who are the wealthy people and who are the poor people.
It takes a lot of energy, and the end result may be unhappy for the pensioner. They are not satisfied. I should have got more. I've got 500 rupees less, I need to have 500 rupees more. So there's all this arbitration in there. There's room for that. And in fact, this is one of the reasons why the means test was abolished. It's not because it's just costly, but because it was not always fair to everybody and didn't help to keep the poor out of poverty.
The public popularity of the universal pension has played a key role in sustaining political support of the pension.
We even lobbied the politician, the political people who were in the opposition, and we met them several times, and we had an over and over understanding with them that as soon as they will get into power, so they will reintroduce the universal pension for everybody. And fortunately, they won the election in 2005. And as soon as they won the election, after 1 or 2 weeks, so they just said, okay, now it's over. The old system is over now. Now we are reintroducing the old the system where everybody are reaching the age of 60 will get that universal pension. So where we are now.
Since being re-implemented in 2005, Mauritius's universal pension scheme maintains a high approval rating among the government and Mauritians themselves.
At the end of the day, it is preferable to pay small pension to everybody than to pay pensions to a targeted system which leaves out a big chunk of poor people.
It shows government philosophy in creating what we call an inclusive society.
Despite a poor economic outlook in the past, Mauritius has been able to maintain its commitment to ensure the income security of all older men and women.
Mauritius was very much a low-income country. It was a monocrop economy dependent on king sugar, and there was not much scope for economic development in those days, so much so that some Nobel Prize winners said that Mauritius was a doomed country in those days. Fortunately, we proved them wrong.
For governments thinking about implementing cash transfers, the payment of cash presents a significant challenge, particularly to rural or underdeveloped areas. The Hunger Safety Net Program, or HSNP, funded by UK Aid in partnership with the Government of Kenya, is using innovative approaches to address this challenge. Northern Kenya is perhaps one of the most difficult regions to implement cash transfers. The region is serviced with poor infrastructure, and local governments struggle to deliver services across the vast and unforgiving terrain to a largely pastoralist population.
Turkana is one of the poorest districts that we have in the northern Kenya, both from the shocks of drought and also the shocks of conflict.
In this context, older people are particularly vulnerable and as a result make up a significant proportion of the beneficiaries of the HSNP.
Older people are most affected in the sense that they are at an age where they can't diversify anymore, they can't go back to school, they can't start doing business.
Their children are no longer able to take good care of them as they used to do. The social fabric of the African society is not as strong as it used to be.
Because of these and other vulnerabilities associated with aging, older people face challenges when accessing cash.
They can't travel far. Many of them are not literate.
Despite seemingly impossible circumstances, HSNP is using innovative methods to deliver cash within the Turkana region to older people. Payments to beneficiaries are made through a network of agents who are typically local shopkeepers with cash available from his or her business activity. Each agent is given a point of sale or POS device. This device runs on a cellular network and is charged with a solar panel. The beneficiary of the payment is issued with a card to access his or her payment. When an agent makes a payment to a beneficiary, he pays out his own cash. This cash is then credited to the agent's bank account, along with a commission he receives for this service. The POS device ensures that electronic records of the transaction are kept. The device also produces a paper receipt to both the beneficiary and the agent. HSNP's use of technology helps overcome particular challenges for older people, including allowing a representative to collect cash on an older person's behalf.
We also provided for the biometric to pick images of more than one recipient, so that if the beneficiary was an aged person who can't travel even to the agent's shop, they can identify a person in the family or in the community to go for the money on their behalf. The agency model is what has been most successful, because we can have the agency as near as possible to the recipients.
Using the agency model in regions like Turkana, which do not have strong cash economies, raises concern about whether other potential agents will have enough funds to consistently pay high numbers of recipients within short windows of time.
Sitting in Nairobi, we couldn't see how that kind of liquidity every 2 months would come from. Now we know better. There are areas that you find lots of money, even though on the map of the location or even the district, you'll not see much settlement. Liquidity also was addressed by distributing the beneficiaries' visit to the agents across the month, so that they all don't come at the same time. So you'll find the card holders have a color code for the week they'll visit the shopkeeper, so that we work within the liquidity of the shopkeepers' day-to-day sales.
Kita aku tu akan ke toltona pidi akan tu kan kita nyarad tu apa kaina asa aku orang nayong ida ye pero tu na be akan ku talo sto shugulang ide dukul an bo chaka ngi sete anga tamar kan ke ye tichilo da ke chi aya won tanyo na ngu jurusu ngi dile pe dorto tele pade tichilo ko.
The payment delivery component also had to assess the appropriate number of agents that would be needed to cover this extensive region.
The selection of agents within each sublocation is first dependent on the number of beneficiaries in these locations, because the payout must make some business sense to the agent. Our original target was each agent pays a minimum of 400 to 500. And that has worked well, so that in locations where you have, let's say, 800 beneficiaries, then we target to have 2 agents. In some locations, you'll have as many as 1,000, and we go for 2 to 3 agents.
The use of local community traders to deliver cash as agents can have a range of additional benefits.
Ya kadang tunggu lo zinja sama tu pertama kali lewat. Tejio. Lo mari zinja kan ini tak dia marah rupiah, bahkan ini ada kera itu yang ada na rupiah tak dia marah kan ini.
Joka kuarin ni riam na takeji, eponente tegialan kabur. Kasabu ayah karya ngabucar, ayah karya hotelin doci, kabucar dukandan. Asa yang ngalikin tiang kuarin ni riam na takeji ni ayah karya tichiloko. Elo ada ngibere.
One thing with this program is that it has enhanced the capacity of our local traders to handle big cash, which they were not handling before, and also to handle many customers.
We've seen the agent move from a simple shop to what is now almost a 3-roomed permanent dwelling with a bigger shop, and you can see that we've been part of that journey. We can claim a bit of credit that all of us as the HSNP program have brought prosperity to that agent. But more so, a lot of stories have come from the beneficiaries.
Angara tena ni kwa si kalakara zua. Kotere ngala kazil kola dawuni. Ada un kotere bot. Dawna tangbaran. Ana dawuni ngabaran na tulunyi na kor. Ana lunyi na kor. Atakor bangi pepe kangi pe. Ile to kona mam.
Kotere ntar bang rupiang kotere joko. Arai lo sikulu aloto tomoginin. Arai karai yam malaria to mangde.
Elokonyiki akornon karena ni ayi. Karena ni akoro kaneno wei ako undia muna renga tonga. Lokonyiki to ana akoroni ko tanga tonga.
There may be additional development impacts, such as the extension of financial services, which can be attributed to the choice of payment delivery mechanism.
The agency model enables the bank to take banking services beyond the current frontiers. The program has created a great opportunity for us to offer other services through the branches and through the agents in these areas. We see the potential of HSNP agents becoming full commercial agents, and possibilities of the customers then being able to reach full financial services through agency. We see the cash transfer as one step towards offering financial services, to people you would imagine could not have been part of our target or anybody else's target to bring to financial inclusion.
HSNP's unique government and private sector partnership has large implications on how the scheme impacts beneficiaries, the wider effect for non-beneficiaries, and also the program's cost.
Government and private sector initiatives open the space for innovation, open the space for efficiency, and indeed for sustainability, because you get a lot of the monies ending up with the beneficiary instead of the monies funding the logistics.
Collaborating with the private sector like the Equity Bank, that has going to revolutionize, because people will be confident their money will reach those particular individuals.
You look at the existing infrastructure of the bank, you don't have to invest in the physical infrastructure. We are using branches as hubs for supporting agents, branches as hubs for case management. We are using branches as hubs for field officers and other work.
The real main aim of the program is to support those particular groups that are vulnerable, who are in chronic poverty. With that support, it's hoped that they would actually increase their asset base to allow them a margin to start looking for beyond survival. The other one is to produce a model that can be used then nationally for national social security for older people, in particular those type of areas. The other one is expectation is that we'll get a lot of spin-offs, areas where there are a number of people registered. Those towns have already come up. The economic effect in those particular areas has been quite great. So a lot of multiplier effects.
Ensuring the income security for older people through non-contributory pensions is an important step that is being considered across the continent. We have heard from Mauritius, almost 60 years on, that a universal pension is popular and is sustained through the political commitment to the well-being of Mauritians in old age. Namibia has shown that across the country, older people are playing key roles in the local economy and its future growth. And finally, we have seen in Kenya that despite seemingly insurmountable challenges, cash can be delivered to older people. As Africa's older population grows, clear evidence has emerged that social pensions are affordable and implementable, and could play a major role in national, social and economic development processes.